The African American Legend series highlights the accomplishments of blacks in areas as varied as politics, sports, aviation, business, literature, and the arts. We will explore how African Americans have succeeded in areas where they'd been previously excluded because of segregation, racism, and lack of opportunity. I'm your host, Dr. Roscoe C. Brown, Jr., and with us today is Voza Rivers, the spokesman for the arts in Harlem. You work with the Harlem Arts Alliance, and you work with the New Heritage Theater. What else do you do, Voza?
I think it's in my DNA now, and I'm also the chair of the Arts and Cultural Committee for the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce. I head up the New Dwyer Cultural Center in Harlem, and I'm involved in the Coalition of Theaters of Color, the Cultural Equity Group. It goes on and on and on.
I know when anybody wants to do anything in the arts in Harlem, they say, call Voza. So I'm calling Voza. Tell us about the film festival, the Artivist Film Festival that you are involved with.
The Artivist Film Festival is a 7-year-old festival that started on the West Coast in L.A. And the thrust of the film festival is to look for individuals who use art and filmmaking to get their stories across, and they're usually documentary filmmakers. The festival is moving to New York City the 25th of March for the very first time, and why it is so important is that they have selected a film that Jamal Joseph, who is the director of the graduate film program at Columbia University, is the director. Lloyd Williams from the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce and myself are the executive producers of a film on the life of Percy Sutton, and it's called Sutton, A Man for All Seasons. They have selected that film to open the film festival, looking at this Renaissance man and all that he had done, and especially the work that he had done with the Apollo and inner city broadcasting, and use those vehicles to change and make a difference in the lives of the communities in which he serves. So now, we're very pleased.
How long ago was this film made?
This film was made 2 years ago. In fact, it was made in February of '08, where we're still a work in progress, where we celebrated the chairman's contributions at the Schomburg Center, and you were there. So what we have done is we showed an excerpt from that film, but now the film has been completed, and it's opening up the film festival.
Now, what other kind of films will they be showing at the film festival?
There will be other films that are coming from around the country, still dealing with some of those other the other areas. My real main goal is to try and get as many people to come out for the opening of the festival, which is March the 25th, for the Percy Sutton film, The Man for All Seasons. It's at the Tribeca Film Center on Canal Street. And for further information around the film festival, I could be called at my office.
Okay, give me the number.
The New Heritage Films office is 212-926-2550, and it'll also be posted on newheritagetheater.org website. New Heritage Theater, spelled THEATRE.org, and they could also get information about the Artivist Film Festival.
Now, the objective in doing this film about Percy Sutton, who recently passed away, was to let people know just what Percy Sutton had done for New York City, for the black community, and for the nation.
Yes, but what I think is really interesting about the film with Percy Sutton is that he really narrates his own story. We were able to have him tell his story. From the age of 12 through, and then we intercut with historical and archival footage, but then some of the remarks from people like yourselves and others that are embedded in the project. But it's a really, really great half an hour of one of our icons telling his story, and how timely it was that 2 years ago we were able to do this film.
Now, as a result of the film festival and the exposure, what else would you like to see done with this film?
The film will be made available in April for sale to individuals who are interested in learning more about Chairman Percy E. Sutton.
That would be schools and
we are
community
going,
organizations.
yeah, we're going to place the film into public schools and libraries as a gift, so that would be part of their offering to community members and school children. One of the things that we did in February is that we showed excerpts from the film in February on a Saturday to school children. And because I'm also involved in another organization called Community Works, which are in 550 schools across the city in 50 of the 51 city council districts, so we're all over all boroughs, we decided to dedicate all of our programming for the month of February to Chairman, in memory of Chairman Sutton. So they now know that this wonderful giant of a man existed. They know about his contributions, and we're now going to make copies of the film available in those schools.
Well, I knew you knew Percy Sutton very well. Did you learn anything new in dealing with him in this documentary?
I didn't learn, well, yes, I learned a lot about his family, but what I think, the humbleness of what I had experienced by being with him really comes through, and to hear everyone else who met him say similar things. I mean, he was true to character. It wasn't that he was one way somewhere else. I mean, he was just true to character, and he was by the people and from the people, because walking down the streets and listening to him speak to, and that used to happen. I would go by the theater, by his office, and just walk from one location to the other, and it would take maybe 20 minutes to go from one block because of the people he stopped to talk to. And it's just very apparent that he was loved by all.
Now, Percy came into action in the post-World War II period,
Yes.
where things were really challenging and changing for blacks in America. Do you think that in 2010 there could be another Percy Sutton type person to light the way, or have things changed so much that we don't need to depend just on one person, but we need several people, several organizations?
I really do believe that the dynamic personalities of single individuals is good to help inspire, but it's about the institutions that are needed. I mean, that's the reason why the NAACP and the Urban League and those organizations are so important, as opposed to just that dynamic leader. History has taught us that dynamic leaders can come and go for various reasons. When we think about Martin Luther King or the Kennedys or Malcolm X and others who really made those significant contributions, but the work that they need to do and have done needs to carry on, and it's really around the institutions that they build. So I'm really about institution building. The Apollo exists today because Chairman Sutton put adrenaline, put life into it, but not only did it rebuild a cultural edifice, it rebuilt a community. And that whole economic corridor that we now see today happened because of his involvement in creating an institution that would be first class.
Well, clearly Percy helped to create inner city broadcasting company, Apollo, and some of the media companies. But then he had an impact on politics.
Yes.
Politics are much more complicated for black folks now than they were in 1960 because of the integration and proliferation of a number of political leaders. What do you think Percy would say about some of the current challenges that we face in the black political community?
I think the chairman would say that he's never seen an assault like we're experiencing now with this media frenzy. I think that it's a combination of a number of things. We have now risen to very, very powerful positions. We controlled multi-billion-dollar budgets in areas that we were never allowed to get to that status where we could control that. As a result of that, the stakes are much higher. And then people get nervous. Who's in control? There are organized groups that have taken on as their mission to discredit those people with that kind of power. It requires a great deal of scrutiny, to make sure that you dot your I's and cross your T's once you ascend to that political base, because the more you do, the more you become visible, and there's a great responsibility with that. And I just think that it's that time now where we just have to be extremely careful, and not believe that we're not under scrutiny.
It was very interesting. The nexus between politics, history, and culture is really crucial to understanding where Black America is, where Black people are. Now, you work mainly in the cultural field, but many of the things you do culturally are related to political figures and political activities that have happened. What do you think will happen in the next, let's say, 25 years in terms of the impact of Black cultural history on Black political life?
The current status of the I go back to institutions, the cultural institutions, they're all aging. The leadership is aging. The question is, where's the legacy coming from to continue the work that was created? When I came up, in theater 45 years ago, I walked in someone's shadow. But I knew that I was making a commitment, and it wasn't just a trip to go somewhere else.
Whose shadow were you walking?
I was walking in the shadows of Roger Furman, my mentor, who came out of the American Negro Theater with Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, Sidney Poitier.
Which goes back to the 30s.
That's right, the late 30s and early 40s at the American Negro Theater in the basement of the old County Cullen Library, where they used to meet. So I don't know, and over the course of several years, I have mentored a number of really dynamic young people. The commitments are different. Scales of economics are different. For me, being involved in a theater company and making a difference where you couldn't get paid to do the work, but you got paid many rewards because of what you were giving as a gift to the community. And so for some of us who were able to stay the course, we now, 45 years later, I've inherited this institution. There were so many other people who were part of it who just couldn't stay the course. So when you ask about the future, what I would have to do is almost go case by case in terms of the institutions to find out where is the leadership, because I know that there's a vacuum, but I also know that there's a whole change of communities and interests. We're all struggling in terms of keeping our doors open. The funding isn't there. The demographics of a changing community that says that as new people come into the community and as the seniors are graying and going out less, how do you attract that new group to be supportive of your cultural mix, if in fact they come from other communities and they go back to the other communities for their cultural enrichment? We know that arts and culture can reflect the communities in which you live, and which is what we do. So I believe that it is a question about the future that right now I don't have an answer for, because we're all on very fragile grounds. So if in fact tomorrow or next year New Heritage Theater closes its doors for what it was 40 years ago, at least I know that I have in place a legacy would impact repertory theater, which are a group of young people that we have taken more than 12 years ago to train them to take over the theater. But if I'd have to go institution by institution to look and see what others are doing.
Well, what about the Dwyer Cultural Center? That seems like one of those institutions that might move things along.
Well, the Dwyer Cultural Center is a new kid on the block. The Dwyer Cultural Center was another project that took 20 years in the making. Cliff Frazier, Ademola Olugbafola, Lester Hyatt, and Ellis Hazlett were originally involved in identifying an abandoned warehouse at 123rd Street and St. Nicholas Avenue, 90,000 square feet of space that had been left unattended for years. And we said, oh, this would make a great opportunity to do artist affordable artist work and living space. That was a dream then. We didn't realize the dream in its original incarnation, but we saved the building with others and the state funding, and now we have a new cultural center called the Dwyer in the lower level of the building at 258 St. Nicholas. It is 7,500 square feet of space. We have partnered with one of the best producers of children's programming in the city, Community Works, and we have exhibitions that is really solely dedicated to the history of Harlem. So it's different than, say, the Schomburg, which is a repository of arts and cultural literature of the African American experience worldwide, where we are concentrating our efforts is on the history of the Harlem community. So we have wonderful exhibitions that have traveled around the city and now are housed at the Arts Center.
Now, what impact does this have on the new residents? Many of them who are not African American, are they beginning to understand the history and the significance of Harlem, and does the Dwyer help that to happen?
I believe that the Dwyer is helping it happen, whereby it's a state-of-the-art facility, which means we have all the latest technologies, so that although that the Dwyer is a central location in Harlem, the end product of what's being produced can go outside of Harlem. We, for example, Purdue University came with 50 of their students, from undergraduates through PhD candidates, and spent 3 days at the Dwyer. Last week we went with Columbia University in their Double Discovery program, where they are now taking on some of the assignments for those students that come in and study. We have, since we opened in June, we have had more than 130 different programs and over 11,000 visitors. So, and those visitors are a reflection of what the city looks like.
Are they mostly from schools or from out-of-town
I
organizations?
would say that 60 to 70% of the visitors are school children.
Good.
And that's really important because that's at the other level. So we're talking about middle-aged school children straight through high school.
Now, Harlem has been seen over the years as the capital, the cultural capital of Black America. But now we have centers in Nashville, we have centers in New Orleans, centers in Atlanta. To what extent, as African American artists and performers and musicians have had a diaspora, left Harlem and so on, what extent is there any crucial unit in Harlem or cultural center that allows us to grow? Now, you're dealing with the history of it, but the history also has to be reinforced by people who are coming along. So, well, what about Harlem? What's happening with arts in Harlem?
Fortunately for me, because I've been around so long, there used to be an organization called the Harlem Cultural Council. Emory Taylor was one of them, and they used to have Dance Mobile, just like they have Jazz Mobile. They used to have Dance Mobile, and people would dance on a flatbed truck and go around. And that was almost 40 years ago. They decided that it was important that cultural groups would come together, and it was disbanded. In 2001, I embarked on another version of what they had done 30 years ago called the Harlem Arts Alliance. And so a group of 12 of us decided that we needed to get out from our respective locations to come together once a month to have conversations about where we were going, if there are there ways that we could work together through marketing, sharing information about funding, share artist directories and mailing lists, etc. Through that initiative, today, there are 700 members in the Harlem Arts Alliance. They are not-for-profit and for-profit entities, because I really wanted to get the businesses to be involved and not just saying that it's not for profit. There are performing artists and visual artists. There are directors, choreographers, filmmakers, set designers, you name it. In addition to that, we also have universities. So Columbia University is a member, City College is a member, Manhattan School of Music is a member. We have churches, Cathedral of St. John the Divine, Riverside Church, large institutions that have these cultural presentations. And we meet the first Monday of every month at the theater in Riverside Church at 91 Claremont Avenue from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, and that's always the first Monday of every month.
Well, you sound like you're inviting people to come.
Oh, it's an open meeting. It is an open meeting, so people, your viewers are definitely invited to get an opportunity to see, because it addresses what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. We have now created a vehicle where people from all over the country come to our meetings, not only around the country, across the world. For example, a few weeks ago, we had guests from Japan, we had guests from South Africa, we had guests from Germany, we had guests from Italy. They come because they want to either move into the community or meet people who are making a significant contribution, and it's like one-stop shopping. Mm-hmm. So because you have visual artists and performing artists all in the same place, it's really a very, very interesting dynamic that takes place within the 2 hours. And it's not just a meeting. If you're a filmmaker, you can have a screening of your film. Each meeting we have the visual artists displaying their artwork on the stage of the theater. If you have a play, you could do a scene from your play or a monologue. If you're a poet, you can read a new work in progress. And then our vendors get a chance to showcase their wares. That all happens within a 2-hour period. And so the information that we have been able to share collectively, people from other locations outside of New York, they go back. So Saturday, I met with a young man from Atlanta, Georgia, and he said, Voza, there are a lot of us who came from the East are now all living in the South. And I am looking for a model that we could replicate. And I think that what you guys have done is how I want to do it. So, of course, I'm packing up and sending him all the historical information. 3 weeks ago, I did the same thing for the Westchester Arts Alliance, which is brand new, and it's based on the Harlem Arts Alliance model. Models like that is the way we're going to sustain our culture. So it's not just the performing aspects of it, but it is how do we network with each other across the country.
Do you have a website?
Yes, we do, and it's harlemaa.org. www.harlemaa for artsalliance.org.
Okay, now there are groups like this, I think, in Brooklyn and in Queens. Do you work with those groups?
We work with the Queens Council of the Arts, the Bronx Council of the Arts, the Asian American Arts Alliance, the Northern Manhattan Arts Alliance, the Field, Art New York.
Those are not mainly African American. They cover many different cultures.
Well, yes, because of the proximity of where they are. Mm-hmm. While we are in Harlem, and Harlem is reflective of an integrated community, as opposed to saying that we're an African-American organization, the predominant number of members are African-American. Mm-hmm. But we also know that we have an ever-growing African population in Harlem. So at a Harlem Arts Alliance meeting, we have 2 correspondents, one from Asia and one from West Africa. And at each meeting, they bring us up to date on the new artists from their respective countries who are in our community, and they're introduced to us and they share what they're doing. And through that process, what we've been able to do is to have our artists and those visiting artists work on projects together. And we're doing something like that on March the 19th, which is our International Day, to showcase our members from around the world.
Money is the mother's milk of politics. It's also the mother's milk of culture. What kind of funding now is available for the arts? How can the arts survive in this economic crisis we're in now?
The model that I am going back to is an old model, and I take it right out of the page book of churches. and it's really the doors of the sanctuary are open. We want we want our ministers, as they would do, is to come on and walk if you're going to be saved. If you want to help save these institutions, you have to bring yourself, your friends, your neighbors, and your children the same way you do the church, because the funding right now is very, very difficult. And we really have to tap into the community and make sure that they appreciate the work that we do and understand that it has to be fueled with a contribution. It can no longer be that you take advantage of something and not give back. So we're ready to do our part, and we're asking the community to do theirs by showing the relevancy of the work that we're doing and by supporting it. That's what really has to happen.
But is there any commercial benefit that comes out of this? Are you getting people to attend functions? You are selling films, you're selling DVDs, whatever. What are you doing at that area?
New Heritage is fortunate because we have these different divisions and they can create products that we could sell. So yes, if you're not a New Heritage and you don't have a film distribution company, but you have a theater group, a theater company, well, the product that you're selling are your plays, and you want people to come in and pay admission to see that work. However, like programs like yours and others, there are all the new means of social communications.
And you're doing that very well. We've come to the close of our show today on African American legends. Voza Rivers, a salesman for the arts. Thank you, Voza, for being with us.
Thank you.